I'm Jess, and it's so great to be with you for a few moments today. Welcome to Kingston Standard Church, our online version. I'd love to invite you to connect with us online or in person. If you're in the Kingston area, come on out. We would love to see you. If you're limited to online connection though, not a problem. Just be sure to check out our website for at-home worship resources. But in the description box of this video, you're going to find the link to our website. As well, you can always follow us on YouTube and like us on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to both so that you'll stay up to date on all the new content when it's posted. We have a variety of resources available to families and kids on both Facebook and YouTube, so if this is your first time joining us, or if you've been here before, we want to encourage you to go ahead and check that out, because our mission is to equip families for the conversations that they have together to learn and grow and follow Jesus. And if you want to touch base personally, then feel free to reach out. You can send us a message on Facebook, or you can use the address below. So let's dive in and see what we're going to learn about today.
In my teen years, I learned in a first aid class the Heimlich maneuver. Now, I never ever thought I would have to use it. But fast forward quite a number of years later, we're a family of 6 and we've got a young guy with us at our house, and we're watching a game together and we're eating, and then all of a sudden it looks like he's starting to choke. And in that split second of what happens in that moment, you're like, okay, is this really happening? Maybe he's joking. Nope, he's not joking. Okay, I guess we need to deal with this. I do know what to do. I guess I need to do this now. Okay, here we go. And all that happens in your head so quickly. And now, having done it for real, I have to admit I was kind of surprised to see how quickly the whole situation was resolved and we were restored to sitting and watching the game again. Now, maybe you've had some of those kind of moments. They may not have been around health, but sometimes they happen in our lives, that there are times that are set before us and we have to act quickly. It may be in response to traffic so that we don't end up in an accident. It could be quickly to grab a ball or a puck, or to block something that may be flying in a direction that might hit someone you're next to. Those quick engagements when people are in need are oftentimes moments that we find ourselves in, and sometimes we can freeze, and sometimes we act. And most of us hope that we're ready to act when those kind of moments come, because there's not a lot of advanced preparation that we can oftentimes have for the moment itself. It often lands in our lap without any glamour, and we just react based on our previous training and experience. Now, in some ways, we're describing the story of the person we're looking into today. She's a woman who responded to an opportunity presented to her. Interestingly enough, as a result, she's one of only 2 women in Scripture who are given the name of a woman that is blessed. One of those is Mary, the mother of Jesus. But surprisingly enough, the other person is this lady in the book of Judges named Jael. Now, Jael is connected with the backstory of Deborah and the nation of Israel as a judge. And a few weeks ago, Pastor Peter actually shared about Deborah, and their stories intersect very directly. So just to review, Deborah was a female judge in Israel, and in the era before the kings of Israel showed up and after Moses had passed away, there were the judges. And what would happen is the Israelites would dishonor God, and there would be a mess that would be created, and neighboring countries would attack them and oppress them for a while, and then they would cry out to God, and God would raise up a judge to free the people of Israel. Now, Deborah was one of those judges, and she had heard directly from God to go and attack the Canaanites who had been messing with them. Now, messing with them is a bit of an understatement. This was a looting, murderous, kind of rape and pillage type of group of people, and they were all led by this slimeball general named Sisera. Well, Deborah approaches an Israeli leader named Barak, telling him God has directed him to go and take his army to defeat Sisera and the army of the Canaanites. And he, in response, kind of hedges and says, I'm not going to go without you. And so he creates another mess of dishonoring God, this cultural faux pas, and all this kind of mess that's there. And so as a result, Deborah responds by saying, the honor of this victory will now be with a woman. So this is where we pick up the story in Judges chapter 4, verse 14 through 24. Then Deborah said to Barak, get ready. This is the day the Lord will give you victory over Sisera, for the Lord is marching ahead of you. So Barak led his 10,000 warriors down the slopes of Mount Tabor into battle. When Barak attacked, the Lord threw Sisera and all his chariots and warriors into a panic. Sisera leaped down from his chariot and escaped on foot. Then Barak chased the chariots and the enemy army all the way to Harosheth Hagoyim, killing all of Sisera's warriors. Not a single one was left alive. Meanwhile, Sisera ran to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because Heber's family was on friendly terms with Jabin, the king of Hazor. Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, come into my tent, sir. Come in, don't be afraid. So he went into her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. Please give me some water, he said. I'm thirsty. So she gave him some milk from a leather bag and covered him again. Stand at the door of the tent, he told her. If anyone comes and asks you if there's anyone here, say no. But Sisera fell asleep from exhaustion. Jael quietly crept up to him with a hammer and a tent peg in her hand. Then she drove the tent peg through his temple and into the ground, and so he died. Then Barak came looking for Sisera. Jael went out to meet him, and she said, come, I'll show you the man you are looking for. So he followed her into the tent and found Sisera lying there dead, with the tent peg through his temple. So on that day, Israel saw God defeat King Jabin from the Canaanite tribe. And from that time on, Israel became stronger and stronger against King Jabin until they finally destroyed him. Now, this was a key turning point moment both for Jael and for Israel. Her husband had been allied with Sisera. Historians tend to think he was a metal worker, likely a weapons tech, making and fixing the tools for the wars that the Canaanites fought. Jael, on the other hand, was loyal to God and to Israel, even though she herself was not Israeli. And in this moment, she steps up, and in the process, she definitely has broken her husband's alliance, which creates a bit of a high risk of them now being attacked by the Canaanites. But she shows her godly allegiance and allows this, what could have been a very culturally strange moment, to be an opportunity. There are all kinds of nuances around the fact that she allowed a man into her tent who wasn't her father or her husband. But her response puts her in the right place at the right time to deal with this war criminal and brutal leader named Sisera. If he escaped, it would result in more oppression because he would just form another army. If his life ends, as it did, we see in those verses how it moves Israel toward freedom. Her quick response was because she understood the time and knew what to do, and as a result, she was unexpected help for Israel at an unexpected time. Once in the early years of settlers arriving in the West, a bounty of $500 was offered because somebody decided they wanted to capture some of the wolves that were roaming the countryside alive. So it turned these two friends, Samuel and Jedediah, into bounty hunters, and they saw fortune in their eyes as they scoured the mountains and the forest looking for this valuable creature. Exhausted one night from their search, they fell asleep, and as they were dreaming of their potential fortune, they were awakened by the sight of flaming eyes and bared teeth. And they turned to each other and said, "We're rich." Now, in the middle of a moment like that, all of us can see one of two things. We can see an opportunity, or we can see a disaster in the making. And Jael was no different. Her perspective in that moment could have led her to just see Sisera showing up as a problem. After all of Israel is chasing this guy, and the rules of hospitality in her culture meant that she would be willing to trade her life for his in order to protect him if she allowed him into her camp. This is a very fascinating story, and as we've mentioned, somewhat gruesome account, but it's valuable to us in so many ways, as God reminds us of some important realities as we follow him. First off, we're reminded that we've been given opportunities and we need to decisively act on them. Jael was tuned in to life in Israel. She understood what God was up to with freeing the people of Israel from this round of oppression. Now, maybe she was unaware she had been actually playing a long game, that people who were coming and going from her camp that were part of Sisera's group ultimately were allies and friends with her husband. They trusted her as a result, and they allowed her to get close, allowing this opportunity, so to speak, to just kind of land in her lap. And up until this moment, we don't see that her heart was loyal to God and to his people. Now, of course, we've mentioned there were risks involved, and seldom does God present opportunities that don't involve risk. We alluded to the broken alliance, the perception that she may be promiscuous with a man in her tent. What if Sisera had wakened up while she was creeping toward him? She'd have been toast. She was no hand-to-hand combat specialist. Maybe somebody else could have caught up. You know, she had a short window to act on this opportunity. Like we've mentioned, either freeze, which meant that Israel would probably continue to be oppressed. Sisera would escape and rally another army to beat up on the Israelites again. Or, if she acted, Israel could experience a path to freedom, which is what we see happened. When we think about this for our lives, one author summed it up in this way: when the Holy Spirit prompts us to act, we usually don't have long to think. Situations are ever-changing in this life, and opportunities pass by quickly. This is why we need to decide in our hearts that when the time comes, we will say yes to God. Sometimes the window of opportunity to act in concert with God is short, and Jael reminds us that we've been given opportunities and we need to act decisively on them. But it also reminds us we've been given tools and we need to use them. There was a guy who was pretty instrumental in my own faith journey as a teenager, and as a young teen with a car, I had a car stereo I wanted to put into that vehicle, and I was just trying to figure out how to do it, and he helped me make that happen. Now, that time we shared together actually opened me up to him, and we had many further conversations about faith and growing in a life of following Jesus. And I grew up in an era where being used by God really was defined in that time, when it meant that if you sang, or if you could play an instrument, or if you could speak in front of a group of people, then that's how God would use you, and that's the kind of people God used. Now, thankfully, most of us see past that now. But sometimes when we think of who we are, we can miss some of the simplest skills that God would use to accomplish his purposes with us and through us. So with our friend Jael, we recognize that in her culture, women often set up and maintain their own tents, and they often had a number of other tents that they were responsible for in the camp as well. So hammering a tent peg, that was kind of routine stuff, everyday work for somebody like JL. Using the skills that she was a pro at, she ended up in this no hesitation move. We don't see her digging around trying to find a sword that her husband may have made or been repairing at the time. She uses what is in front of her to fulfill following God. An author that I read recently shared it a little bit like this. God equips his people for the work he puts in front of them. He gives them certain skills and gifts, and we should always be on the lookout for ways to use them. Even when we don't feel skilled or equipped or prepared, he ensures that we are for the sake of his glory. It may not look the way we expect it to, and it may take a lot of trust to act when we don't feel so well equipped, but God is our sovereign, and we can trust him to give us the needed competence in that moment. JL is a great reminder, isn't she, that sometimes the tools we need in the journey of following Jesus are not maybe as complicated as what we expect or really ever that far out of reach. We've been given tools and we need to use them. Now, we all have skills and we all have places we're connected, people we're connected to. Sometimes they may seem unimportant or obscure, but JL's story reminds us of how simple it is to see that God lands us in the right place at the right time. We've been given opportunities and we need to act on them. We've been given tools and we need to use them. But they won't be without risk, and they won't be without us needing to apply courage. So as we consider what do we do with this now, I would suggest to you it begins with a prayer of availability. JL is one of many people we've looked at in this series. Not all heroes wear capes. And they were in the right place at God's right time. In JL's case, it was one significant moment where she was tuned into God, and as a result of her skills that had been prepared through years, she didn't even realize how ready she was for that moment. In a few moments, we're going to pray together, and I would encourage you to pray with me that God would help us to be tuned in, to understand the times, and know what to do in response. There are skills that are a part of our lives that God has placed there maybe for years, and all of a sudden, in one moment, he may implement them to accomplish his purposes together with us. It will require risk, it may require courage, but who knows when God will bring a turning point moment and use us in the process.
Thanks again for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channels, or if you're watching this on Facebook, then you can like and follow us there. And it would mean so much to us if you took a moment to comment, like, and share this video so that others are able to enjoy it as well. And hey, if you're in the Kingston area, come on out. We would love to see you. Please know, though, that you are loved and that we're praying for you. And we certainly appreciate your prayers too. We'll see you soon.